The reward or addiction pathway is a route of signals that takes place within the brain and governs motivated behavior. The activation of this pathway induces the feeling of pleasure or euphoria. The signal begins in the midbrain, which is the top part of the brainstem, and passes to the nucleus accumbens toward the front of the brain. The nucleus accumbens is a type of processing hub for the nervous system and is connected to many other parts of the brain, including the limbic system. The limbic system includes the hippocampus, which is in charge of learning and creating memories, and the amygdala, which regulates our emotional responses. The reward pathway also extends to the prefrontal cortex, which is involved in higher thinking skills such as planning and attention. Aside from normal pleasurable experiences, such as eating and sex, the reward pathway can be stimulated by drugs such as amphetamines, cocaine, or opioids. Dopamine is the main neurotransmitter, chemical messenger of the nervous system in the reward or addiction pathway. Opioids, such as morphine, are a type of medication used to treat pain that can also lead to addiction. Opioids are detected by mu-opioid receptors in the brain. These receptors trigger the release of a greater amount of dopamine than normal in the reward pathway, which is detected by the dopamine receptors on the next neuron, brain cell, in the pathway. This leads to a feeling of euphoria or high. When more opioids are consumed, the same release of great amounts of dopamine is triggered. This triggers more feelings of pleasure, high, or euphoria that are remembered by the limbic system. The brain associates the good feeling with the consumption of opioids, which leads to repeated use. When the brain is overstimulated by this feeling of euphoria, it makes regulatory changes. The amount of dopamine receptors in the neurons, brain cells, of the reward pathway is reduced. This reduction in dopamine receptors leads to drug tolerance, which means that the same amount of drug will have a lesser effect over time. Therefore, higher amounts of the drug are needed to produce the same effect of pleasure, high, or euphoria.